Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Adrienne. I'm a communications consultant and a university lecturer. Today's video is about storytelling. Storytelling is in vogue now. I'm sure you have heard the phrase in many different contexts, and there is a lot to know about it. I don't promise that I will exhaust everything in this video that there is to know about stories and storytelling. But I would like to help you with one particular thing regarding stories, and that is help you find your own stories. I was recently asked by a TEDx team to recommend some potential speakers to them to interview. And I approached this one lady who I think is an extremely interesting and accomplished person. She's a top executive at a financial company. She's a tech wizard and a true people person at the same time. She has lived in multiple different countries and she's an LGBT activist. Does that sound like a person to you who might have some stories to tell? Well, I thought so too, but she didn't. Or let me correct that. So it's not that she didn't think she didn't have any stories to tell, but she just really couldn't think of any particular ones. So this last incident has been one of my motivations for making this video for you today. We all have lots of stories to tell, and they are worthwhile to tell. So in this video, I would like to cover in particular what stories are, why they are important, and how to find your own stories. I am sure there are many definitions out there as to what qualifies as a story. Let me give you my own. It is one potential definition. I would say that a story is an event in your life that evokes intense emotions or really makes you think. Peter Docter, who is the chief creative officer of Pixar, you know, the movie-making company that has come up with some classics such as Up and Inside Out, has won multiple awards. In any case, it's a creative company, he's a creative person, and they are excellent storytellers. So Peter Docter described a story as some event in your life that made you feel in some particular distinctive, significant way. And Peter says that your objective with telling this story should be to make your audience feel the same way. So there you go. That's a story. Perhaps the reason why so many of my clients and my students have had a hard time thinking about stories from their own lives is because of some common misconceptions about stories. I think when it comes to storytelling and our own stories, we often think that it would have to be something huge, something amazing. And then you might think to yourself, well, I haven't climbed the Himalayas, or I haven't spent 3 months in a Buddhist monastery, or I haven't had any kind of amazing athletic achievement, so what do I have to talk about? But the thing is, stories don't have to be something grand and long-winded. Let me refer to Sheryl Sandberg's TEDx talk again, titled Why We Have Too Few Women Leaders. She gave this talk in 2010, and she tells many stories in this talk. One of them is about her pitching at a New York firm, at a New York private equity firm, and not finding a women's bathroom, or the partner not knowing where the women's bathroom is. I don't want to tell you the whole story because I really recommend for you to listen to this speech, but in any case, the story that Sheryl tells in this speech is extremely simple. It's about an extremely mundane, everyday thing of life, such as using the restroom, and it's very short. She starts this story into the speech at 1 minute 44 seconds, and 58 seconds later she's done with it. So in less than a minute, she tells a story that really supports and illustrates her point, and it's even funny. I think this is a really great example for how we can use our stories in everyday life, in business settings, and how our stories, however mundane they may seem, are significant. Now let's move on to discussing why stories are important and why you should be telling stories when you present to an audience or whatever your context is. That is very simple. Stories are important to tell because stories help you make a connection with your audience. They help your audience connect with you emotionally. You may be presenting the most compelling data, and yet it might not click. Stories will help you bring the point home. Also, stories make your speech presentation much more memorable than just dry data and facts. And it is important to be memorable because we are part of the information age now, and all of us have so much information coming at us constantly from every angle. So when you present information to your colleagues, friends, to your audience, you want to be memorable. So telling a story is one great way to make your message memorable. Now let's move on to the most difficult part: how to find your own stories. This is actually not as difficult as it sounds. There is a very great story minding method that I'd like to share with you now, that if you employ in your own life, you will be able to find many stories that you might not have even thought of thus far as stories worth telling. So one way that you can go about this is by a simple chronological order of your life so far. And you can start it as far back as your birth. One of my favorite poets, he's a Hungarian poet, lost his brother and his mother at birth. So he was the only survivor of his birth. And this, needless to say, had an extremely significant impact on his life. He wrote poems about it. He was struggling with this emotionally, questioning his life's worth, and eventually coming to terms with the events of his birth. Now, hopefully your birth wasn't this dramatic, but it might have been significant for whatever other reason. Might be a story there to tell. So start at that point, and you can just move on from there. Your early childhood, who raised you? Are you still in touch with this person? Is this person alive? Was there a significant impact or not so much? You can move on to your elementary school years. Was there maybe a teacher who had a special impact on you, a special influence? Or did you have your first love when you were in first grade? I did. Whatever you can think of, whatever significant emotional event you can think of, just jot it down, and you can work later on embellishing your stories or actually making them into colorful, beautiful, interesting short stories that you can tell in a compelling way. But right now, you can just take note. Write a laundry list, so to speak. Once you're done exploring your chronology and you get to today, then I suggest you move on to exploring your life in terms of the people you've encountered. And you can start with maybe your closest acquaintances, relatives, closest friends, and then you can broaden the circle. I'm sure you've encountered many people in your life, even if you've always lived at the same place and maybe you've always gone to the same school and you've been at the same workplace for a long time. Even in that case, I am sure there are many people whom you have encountered, but most of us don't live that way anymore. So think about your moves and all the people who have been significant in your life. They can be relatives, neighbors, even co-workers. Maybe you belong to some clubs in some communities, fellow club members you can think about. Really just all the people you have met thus far in your life. And you don't need to write a list of all the people. You will know who those significant people are who caused you to have some stories, helped you have stories of your life. And if some pleasant memories come to your mind, that's wonderful. There might be some unpleasant ones too, and that's okay. That's just part of life, and those unpleasant stories are worth telling as well. Next, I suggest you explore places. And the easiest will be to just start with a simple geography of the place where you were born, where you were raised, where you went to school, where you worked at, maybe where your relatives live at, so you go there to visit. And then you can broaden this circle as well. Include travels, include short stays, maybe business trips. This can still be the geography. And then move on to places in a little more abstract way, such as maybe a favorite reading corner in your home, or your grandmother's house that you used to visit, or maybe your favorite grocery store in your neighborhood, or a little cafe at the corner. Whatever place is significant to you, write a list of these and think of stories that relate to these places. I'm sure you'll come up with so many. I think the hardest part of this exercise is just to dedicate the time to it. But I guarantee it that in the long run, you will be so grateful for having explored your personal stories. You can not only use your stories in business presentations or any kind of talk that you give, but these are worthwhile things to share with your friends, to pass down to your children, to discuss with your parents, relatives, your fellow club members, whatever. Through our stories, people can get to know us better and we can get to know ourselves better. So do spend some time exploring your own stories. And once you've done a thorough inventory of all the places that have been significant to you, I suggest you move on to objects, things. In American English, they often call these significant objects conversation starters. Some objects in your home or anywhere else in your life that invoke a story in your mind. These are the conversation starters. So look at some objects around you and you will know which one those sentimental objects are that are significant, that are tied to some kind of a story. I don't know if you're familiar with Marie Kondo, the home organizer guru of today. If you are, you might have seen some of her work, and oftentimes then you've noticed that often when people get to their sentimental objects, the organization of their sentimental objects, that is the hardest. You probably have seen people crying over t-shirts and vases and folders and whatever they are, that objects that are really not significant to the viewer, only to the person who is dealing with these objects, for whom these are sentimental. I'm sure you also have a lot of sentimental objects in your life, so don't get rid of them, but look at them from the point of view of what kind of stories do these objects hold. That will be a great way for you to explore, another way to explore your stories. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have found it useful, and I hope you will do the exercise that I'm suggesting for you to do. Below I will link Sheryl Sandberg's speech so that you can consult it for your reference. And please do subscribe to my channel. I will put out every week new content that you'll find useful, interesting. So please hit the subscribe button, possibly the little bell as well, so you don't miss out. Thank you so much and have a wonderful time exploring your personal stories. Take care now.